Let's not really fool ourselves. We are not a sporting nation as yet. We are nowhere close to it. Where we have really gone wrong in this country is there's too much of money chasing cricket. I put the fault with the corporates in our country. The lady came up to me and said, thank you for putting up CSE. And I asked her why. She said, no, we have this 50-80 site, but then we looked at CSE and said, no, instead of a commercial complex, let's put up a sporting, and that really made my day. I think, sport is something which is completely different in terms of a profession than any other profession in the world. I think it's brutal to be in this profession.
Massive dents in, eliminating extreme poverty in the country. Infrastructure is, of different league altogether in the country now. Even semiconductor, seeing many billions of dollars of investment. So I think you have all the right to expect, kind of world-class administration and world-class ambitions to, do something in sports. Vivek, welcome to SparX. Really looking forward to this conversation. I remember visiting CSE, I think now it's known as Dravid and Padukone Sports for Sports Excellence. So I visited 5 or 6 years ago and it was just barren land. Correct. And you described to me that you are going to build this world-class sports facility. And to be honest, I don't think I truly believed. But then I came back there after 2 or 3 years ago and was just blown away, with the sheer scale and ambition and the quality. Let's start there, why don't you just explain how did even the idea and the vision for CSE evolve in your head and what gave you conviction, commitment, eventually ended up investing, over 100 crores in building the facility. And I think it's a huge gift to the country. We'll come to that. But how did this whole thing start?
Yeah, Mukesh, firstly, thank you for having me on your program. I think you're reminding me of those days when, we had just a barren piece of land and, of course, you were one of our first visitors there and you were very interested to understand what we're doing and how we are doing. But, a lot of people ask me about this vision, and I think the vision is a little bit, too good a statement or a word to use for CSE. For me, I've always been involved in sport from a very young age and watched a lot of sport, gone overseas and watched a lot of sport. And I always felt that why don't we have, I'm saying even decent sporting facilities in our country.
Yeah.
And I think more than the vision, I would say it is a need. It's a need that our country or our cities need something like this.
Yeah.
And it came out of more a need, and something that I felt we should be doing. I mean, we have so many good, for example, education institutions in our country.
Right.
And sport is equally important. So I think it came more from a need rather than, really saying it was visionary to think of something like that.
No, 100%. There is need. I think there's need for a lot more facilities. Yeah. But it's not easy at all. I mean, the just sheer scale and the commitment. What was the journey you went through? Okay, you recognize the need. As a former, sports person, you had, you understood the sports, mindset of sports people and the need and so on, but still translating that into such a big project. Yeah. How did you make that, choice and that commitment?
Yeah, so, Mukesh, you have a lot of social clubs in and around the country. And, we have really good sporting facilities, at the social clubs. So I wanted to kind of replicate something on a similar lines, but it was for excellence.
Yeah.
I wanted to give more importance to sport and excellence rather than the socializing aspect that you see in a social club.
Yeah.
And again, going into, the personal story of, say, the Prakash Padukone Badminton Academy, for which, in which, say, Prakash Vimal and I founded. I think we had a lot of challenges. And the challenges were basically that we never had, the courts to our disposal, right, 24/7. And we that suffered, our players suffered, our coaches suffered. So I'm going by those examples to say again that there was a real requirement for us to have our own academy.
Yeah.
I look at the example of Gopi Chand, I know, he's a very shrewd business guy and an excellent coach and a former player. So the way he used his, academy, he had his own academy and, he could really sweat that to the extent he wanted.
No, absolutely. And I think CSE is already starting to produce a lot of champions. We'll talk about that also. later. But let's go back to your early playing days. So you were a very serious badminton player. You were playing at the fairly senior level, 3-time Karnataka state champion. In fact, you were sharing with me just before we started that you even played with Prakash when towards the tail end of his career, which itself is quite significant. But also what's significant, Vivek, is you started PPBA, Prakash Padukone Badminton Academy, along with him at the age of 24. That's quite again big leap. And also PPBA has done so much for the sports of the badminton in the country. What made you make that choice at such a young age to start the academy with Prakash?
Yeah, so we grew up watching Prakash and then playing with Prakash. Malleshwaram, where I'm based, was a big hub for badminton, and we were all playing in these very small courts in Malleshwaram. So of course, when Prakash was at his fag end of his career, we were of course playing with him, and we were on the same state team and all of that. But I was also at, say, my fag end of my academic career, in the sense that I knew that I'm not going to be studying more than for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
And I started business at the age of 21. And a couple of years later, I by that point of time, I had some business acumen. But I would say the example of starting the academy came from the Britannia Amritraj tennis program.
I see.
The BAT program. And they were running an excellent program. And what was it? It was Vijay Amritraj who used his goodwill and network to find a good sponsor, which was Britannia.
Yeah.
And I was of the firm belief that Prakash can do the same. In fact, I think Prakash had even if I can say, more goodwill across the country. And it's basically, I would say, my role was to push Prakash and Vimal to say we can do it. And both being professional badminton players, being conservative, I think they didn't think that we will be able to get a sponsor, because we were very clear that we will start the academy only if we have a sponsor. And sure enough, to the second sponsor that we went, he said, yes, Prakash, you're the right person to start the academy. And that's how we really started. So my role was really to give them the confidence that, with the brand of Prakash Padukone, you would be able to get sponsors.
And if you can share, who was the sponsor and where did you guys start? Like, what was the early days of PPBA looked like?
So the sponsor was BPL, BPL Limited. They were, of course, one of the biggest, companies at that point of time. I remember they had a marketing budget of about 100 crores, and there was no CSR at that point of time. So it came from their marketing budget. But the amazing thing about BPL, and even I would say the other sponsors that we have had, not only with PPBA, but even with the sponsors who are running at CSE today, they basically didn't want anything in return. They just said, we know we're going to use our funds well. We know this is for a good social cause, and we will support you.
Right.
So it was really BPL and Ajit Nambiar and Rajiv Chandrasekhar for who we have to give a lot of credit to. In fact, I feel that they don't get enough credit for the way badminton has developed in this country, because it's through PPBA that the journey of, I would say, professional badminton evolved.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, I think you're right. Some of these, sometimes the support from both individuals and corporates behind the scenes, which is a big enabler, and you are yourself huge enabler now in some ways, which gets underrepresented, but sports requires that nurturing and people to invest, from both private and public sectors needs to contribute. And so you started PPBA. How was the first 5-7 years? What did things go as you would have liked? There were challenges. What was journey of getting PPBA to shape where it was a premier excellence academy?
All three of us, Prakash, Vimal and I, we would actually get onto the court and actually do the coaching part, because we didn't want to, again, have another set of coaches to come. So we took on the role as coaches. And of course, I was like a feeder coach, and we had, of course, quite a few of the national champions from all across the country who came down and based themselves in Bangalore. Again, the base was Malleshwaram, because that's where the academy started from. In Canara Union Prakash Courts, and the students used to stay in 2-bedroom apartments spread across in Malleshwaram, and they would play twice a day, thrice a day, and combine between badminton sessions and physical training sessions. I think the physical training sessions were at Kantirva. But I quickly realized after 6-7 months, and I would do half a day of work in my business, and I would come in the afternoon and join them, because that was the main badminton session. And I realized that this is a tough job.
Yeah.
You know, to be on the badminton court, even as a feeder, not even as a coach, was a tough job.
Right.
And actually, I gave up after 6-7 months for two reasons. One is because it was a tough job, and secondly, my business started really expanding.
Right.
So then it was just Prakash and Vimal who continued as coaches.
Got it.
But I think there was a lot of early successes, because you know, we had Aparna Popat here, and she was climbing up the rankings in the world.
Yeah.
I think she probably reached 15 or top 15 in the world. Like we had Dipankar, and then of course Gopi Chand also came in later.
Yeah.
But it became the biggest hub for badminton in the country, and it was a really good example as to, you know, how we should run a sport.
Yeah.
But I would say more importantly is the kind of support that we got from the sponsor, you know, BPL.
Right.
You know, I used to actually go to one of their units to you know, give them our account statement.
Yeah.
And there was a finance chief over there, and you know, he would see the statement. After the third time, they said, you can stop sending this.
It's quite incredible. I mean, it's basically a start of, in some ways, organized professional approach to badminton in the country. I didn't realize that, you know, Gopi Chand also came through here, and eventually, you know, he did well as a player, as well as his academy, which has, you know, contributed even more to produce, you know, world-class player. Correct. So in some ways, you know, so you were at the forefront of, you know, along with Prakash and Vimal, setting this up, you know, catalyzing this almost like a badminton movement, which has come a long way. But also what's interesting, Vivek, you know, you were in your 20s, you know, early 20s, you started both your business in manufacturing as well as this Excellence Academy, and in retrospect, you know, both have done really well. You've gone on to do many other things. But that's also, you know, it's quite commendable for, you know, at such an early age to have starting two things simultaneously, and somehow, you know, ensuring both had a pretty decent runway.
You know, in that sense, I've been very blessed with, you know, having good partners, having a good team.
Yeah.
And then, of course, working with Prakash and Vimal has also been, you know, a superb journey for me. But yeah, you know, it's quite strange that almost right through my life, I've done two things parallelly. You know, one was, say, the manufacturing, and then the sports, and then of course was the auto dealership business and the sports. But I've always liked doing that, because I kind of alternate on a daily basis between two different you know, businesses, if one can say.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of learning that you have between, you know, business and sport as well.
100%. And I mean, people, you know, love sports in the country. Watch a lot of sports, and every time I meet you or visit CSE, I really get inspired. You know, I feel like I need to go back and start playing some sport, but the interest unfortunately fizzles out for now. I really hope, you know, I can just incorporate some sport in my life, I think. But it's great that you managed to kind of straddle, you know, you build massive businesses, but simultaneously had enough of a mental bandwidth and time to keep nurturing sports, you know, in many different ways.
The idea of really building the sports facility came about only after I sold, you know, one of the manufacturing companies that we had, Trident Powercraft. And that entire sale took about a year's time. And, you know, I still remember the exact place that I was driving in the car to say, okay, if the sale happens, what do I want to do? You know, and it had to be a very important decision, because, you know, I know that I was getting into also a decision where I have to see how would I like to contribute, you know, and at the fag end of my life or my career, you know, and it was all about sport. And I realized at that point of time that, you know, of course the IPL was just starting, OGQ, you know, as a sports, you know, entity was already beginning to do a lot of great work.
Yeah.
And I said, no, these are things which people have already started taking care of. I don't want to own a sports team. You know, there was an OGQ that was already beginning to fund, you know, our national and international athletes. I said, no, they're doing their job. I want to do something different. And for me, taking on the example of what we were lacking in PPBA, I said, it has to be infrastructure.
Right.
And, you know, so even in terms of the choice of the sports, you know, I had to be a little bit smart about doing that. Football was going to be a natural sport that I chose, because can you imagine, Mukesh, in the city of Bangalore in 2008, 2009, we did not have, we probably had one football ground in the entire city of Bangalore.
Wow.
And, you know how popular football is worldwide and in India.
Right.
But we had zero infrastructure for that, because I did want to have, a small little clubhouse to associate with the center. Again, that's more from sustaining and making it commercially viable. I had to choose sports, 3-racket sports and swimming, and cricket came in, of course, much later. That's a different story. But I had to choose sports which can also be attractive to members, if at all we had members.
Right. So in 2009, as you were selling your business, you kind of made a mental commitment that you want to build this world-class sports infrastructure. From there, and did you start kind of working on it right away to develop the concept, figure out which sports, who to partner with, and so on? Like, how long was the journey of just conceptualizing the whole thing before you start acquiring land, etc., and actively working on the project?
Yeah, so 2009 is when we were successful in selling the company, and there's money in the bank at that point of time. So being a little bit of a finance guy, I said, okay, you need to diversify your portfolio in terms of what kind of assets you're going to buy, invest into. And I was very clear that I wanted to buy around 10 acres of land on the outskirts of the city.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to buy that land to develop some residential or commercial project. I wanted to buy that land to develop sports and sports infra.
Yeah.
But at that point of time, I didn't even know if I buy the land, how much will it cost to put up badminton courts, stuff like that. But I had the idea to, to buy that land. Yeah. And so that it took about a year, 2 years to go and identify, somebody showed me this land near the airport. I said, ideal location. It's near an international school, again, ideal location. And I had an eye on that property, and the land actually came only 2 years later.
Okay.
But during that time, it was just trying to then go overseas and see, what is available and what I can do in case this whole project comes about.
Right. Got it. So and after acquiring land, you started working on it then immediately, or since the reason I'm asking is, eventually you had multiple academies, and what was that journey of doing all the research and figuring out which academies and which partners? At some point, I think curious to also know when did Rahul get involved in the project? He was on this podcast earlier as well, and now his Academy 6 is one of the preeminent academies in the facilities. So yeah, how did this whole thing play out, including his participation in the project?
Yeah, so I've given you a brief of how my relationship with Prakash went, but Rahul was my junior in college.
Okay.
And 3 years my junior in college, and of course I didn't know him that well, but for anything connected with sports and achievements in sport, he was doing really well in cricket, and I was playing badminton at that point of time. So it was a little bit of a relationship that we built up there.
Yeah.
And then of course we all know the Rahul story of how after he graduated into playing for India, and of course he had a late start as well. But what a iconic figure he became. And again, I think there are many jigsaw pieces to this whole puzzle that you see in CSE. But Rahul retired. Okay, and then I just got in touch with him and I said, listen, these are my plans.
Yeah.
Would you be interested to in any way participate?
Yeah.
And there was no cricket ground that was planned there, because I was clear that there's enough of cricket in this country, enough of cricketing infrastructure in this country, enough of money backing cricket.
Yeah.
I mean, the last thing I wanted to do was anything to do with cricket. Although somebody did advise me, a close friend did advise me that, do something with cricket because it can give you some commercial gain, which will help you with the overall project.
Yeah.
But when Rahul came and saw what was really being planned, I think he got attracted to the project, and he said, even in cricket, at different levels, we need to do something different.
Sure.
And I would be really happy to get involved. So that's how we just shelved the entire plan of creating that athletic track, which in hindsight I think was a very good decision, because one is it's very expensive, and the other thing is we don't really have great athletic coaches in our country to produce champions, at least.
Right.
That was the case 7-8 years back.
Right, got it. So cool. So you have, you had Prakash and Rahul to partner with. You had this land, and but what was the process of figuring out, how to set up each of these academies with the world class facilities and equipment? Because that's also fairly technical. It's not you just not just hire some contractors and ask them to build badminton courts or swimming pools. So just maybe give us some window into like maybe some of the more challenging aspects of putting this whole space together.
Yeah, so I think, a lot of people who came and saw the facility and saw the land, said, okay, this is just somebody's dream, but it's never going to really materialize, and so there was, I think people were just feeling that, because there were already quite a few people who had plans to do something like this, but were sitting on the fence. So anyone who even wanted to get into sports infra, didn't get into it because they were wondering as to how everything is going to be sustainable. But the problem, actually the starting problem is you spend too much, your capex is too high.
Yeah.
It's a lost cause in the beginning itself.
Right.
So we had to be very smart in terms of, capex expenditure.
Yeah.
And for me, that is just, personal involvement, and to have the right set of people who are guiding you on this.
Right.
But typically, I'll give you an example of the Murtha swimming pool that we put in, I still remember we went into the last set of negotiations with Murtha, and they had not put a pool in the country. I went into that meeting telling my contractors and the architects that we are not going for this pool. This is the last meeting. It's just to tell them no.
Right.
And we got into the meeting, and of course there was the Italians there on the other side, and they were very keen, to put up the pool because. The fact is that Murtha builds all the swimming pools for all the international Olympics and the World Championships.
Yeah.
They're very keen to showcase their, their equipment and their pools in India. And I just threw a price at them, and I said, "Listen, this is what we'll be able to afford. Although we want to have this pool because this is the best possible pool you can have in the country." And I think a little bit of back and forth, and they agreed. And I think that's one of the really good decisions that we took because it's 7-8 years now. The swimmers are enjoying, swimming in a pool which they'll not be taken by surprise when they go for international competitions. But that's also a learning. And, there are many people who want to come and duplicate a CSE. And I tell them one thing, don't compromise on the quality. So they have this very specialized stainless steel structure and with a beautiful membrane. That they come in. In fact, they build a pool in less than 20 days. Okay, so it's a lot of prefabrication work that is done, and then they come in and just install the pool. And what I like about the Murtha pool is that they force your civil contractors to be so perfect that they cannot come and build a pool unless the civil guys have done a perfect job. And so once you take these kind of decisions, in the long term, they really help.
Right. You have but now 10, 11 different academies, right?
Yes.
So just wanted to describe quickly, like what are different academies and
So like I said, the three racket sports of tennis, badminton, squash, and then the team sports of, we started off with football and cricket. And then we, obviously had swimming because swimming is also a sport that all the athletes require at the end of the week for recovery and, for kind of a cool down.
Yeah.
So those were the 6 core sports that we started with. Over a period of time with, I think because of opportunities and expansion, we got into shooting, we got into basketball, we got into table tennis, and now recently volleyball. But we're also now expanding into a few other sports. We're in talks for wrestling and boxing and weightlifting. And that should kind of complete the picture.
Amazing. It's very comprehensive. Nearly, all popular sports and many of the Olympic sports are covered. Let's talk about who uses these facilities. You have these world-class facilities. It's a bit far out, closer to airport in Bangalore, and there is a this top-end excellence spectrum. But I know there are a lot of kids also who learn sports. So just overall, who is the target audience and how has it evolved? Like who are the people who come to the facilities on a regular basis?
I think it changes a bit sport to sport, but predominantly you would say national, international and state level athletes are using the facility. I would say that caters to almost 60% of total usage. you would have 10% of parents, who are using the facility purely for health and fitness.
Yeah.
And the balance would be a mix of people who are either learning how to play a sport or at some stage and trying to get to that state level or national level, have the aspiration to get into that level. So it's a combination, but I would say 60% are really state and above.
Got it. So if you, on a given day, if you go there, you will probably end up running into watching athletes who are competing at the national level or preparing for Asian Games or even Olympics, practicing the facilities there?
Yeah, I think Olympics, of course, is just a couple of months away, and the swimmers, of course, the cutoff is not yet done. But you have in badminton, you have PV Sindhu who's training there for the last 6-7 months. Now she's getting mentored by Prakash.
Amazing.
Of course, Lakshya Sen has just recently made the cut, but he's been training there since day one.
Right.
He's been training here in PPBA for the last 11 years and at CSE for the last 6-7 years.
Right.
So you will see a fair number of state, national, international athletes training on a daily basis.
And are you now seeing that, people who are not from Bangalore, I guess Sindhu already one example, but in general, people who are aspiring to play for the country are choosing to come to a CSE and train there?
Yeah, you see that more in, I would say, sports like badminton, swimming and cricket, because I think the quality of the coaching and the quality of the training is so much superior than in most other places in the country.
Right.
That there's just a natural, pull towards people coming to the facility to train, because I always give a lot of credit to, one is the facility. I mean, you can create the facility, but it's not just the hardware, but the software, which is very important. And that software is really the job of the various academies. And we are a little bit different in CSE compared to most other such centers which have, like for example at JSW, we run a federal system where our job is really to focus and concentrate on the facilities and maintenance. And we have invited the experts to come in and run their various programs, depending on the various sports.
Right. I know the six cricket academy is relatively new and works with a lot of younger kids. But are there any kids who have graduated to, let's say, IPL or anyone starting to play at a senior level?
So I mean, Six Cricket had its best ever season last year.
Yeah.
And they had, I think, 8 players who represented the under-19 state team.
Okay.
And that's actually a big achievement because, Six is just about, 5 or 6 years old. And a lot of these boys came in at age 10, 11.
Yeah.
And now they are, 17, 18. So they've really gone through that process of what, if I can say, Rahul really wanted in terms of, bringing them up in their sport. Well, I think it's just a matter of time before you'll have IPL breakthrough or Indian team breakthrough. Yeah. But of course, cricket is also the most competitive sport, and therefore one has to be cautious about making these predictions.
Yeah. I think one of the goals you and Rahul should have is contour enough player to RCB, because we really need RCB to do a lot better in IPL. I think people have been waiting for now 14, 15 years to see some breakthrough there.
Yeah, but I think RCB, of course, one can congratulate the women's team, and if I'm not mistaken, there has been a breakthrough there on the women's front as well. Yeah. But like you mentioned, Mukesh, we all are looking forward to some breakthrough with the men's team. Right. Mukesh, I must add here, that, and I want to change the topic a little bit. I've been a great admirer of everything that you have done. Okay, and also so connected with sports and health and fitness. I've read both your books, and they've been big learning experiences for me. But what I really want to ask you, considering that we have this center here, is all that you've done with Cult and Cure.fit, because for me, the speed at which you have been able to move things at Cure.fit. And then it's not only speed, but it's speed and quality. And it's not only say speed and quality, but it's also speed, quality, and expansion. That is for me the toughest thing to be able to achieve in a country like ours. So I want to, learning from what you've been able to do in Cure. Is there something that we can do in our center?
Yeah, no, I think the Cure.fit journey has been, I think, quite rewarding overall. I think, one insight you've already shared earlier, because at the end of it just boils down to team, right? Anything that you need to scale requires a team, but also a template. I think, see the, template and timing at Cult, I think we got the right offering at the right time. I think a lot of people in the last 10 years are becoming more and more health aware. They want to be active, they want to go somewhere. Like you mentioned, no world-class sports facilities. I would argue not even decent gyms, if you go back 10 years ago. So we were able to spot that opportunity, build something which was working at a unit level, but also was then fairly standardized, because to scale, you obviously need that. So right team, which had the experience in building things at scale, building required systems, training, everything, and then you're repeating it, in a systematic manner across country. And I don't think this could have happened 20 years ago, but I think we've got the timing right. A lot of more people are coming into fitness, but also there is a lot of demand for sports. I think, at least in India, the journey is that most people play sports till their high school days. Maybe some play a little bit in college, and then, job happens and life happens and sport goes away. So even among the Cult audience, we see huge demand for sports. In fact, last 4 or 5 years, we've been building this, at least for badminton and swimming. This business is a more recreational end of things. And hopefully, we can scale that and enable a lot more people to participate in sports. But I guess there's also difference between excellence, kind of models versus everyday recreational model. I think what you are doing is, at least, from the facilities, the quality of coaches point of view, is really create an environment where people can train to become the best in the country, best in the world. Yeah. While I think, Cult kind of business is more really standardizing things and promising certain quality every single day and building in everything that we can around that. So I think that has its own need. So, but do you think, we need scale on the excellence academy side of things as well? Like we need, what will you reckon that India should have 10 more CSEs, 50 more CSEs, to really, find a full potential of, what we can do in sports as a country?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Mukesh. I believe that India needs a minimum of 1,000 more CSEs.
Wow.
And then when you divide that figure by the number of states we have or the number of cities that we have, I think that's not a tall task. And the point here is that in the Western world, in any country which is a sporting giant, this is like a basic. A basic facility that is there, I mean, if you look at colleges or universities in the US, they would have facilities, 3 times, 5 times the size of CSE in a college, and the number of colleges that are there in the US. Right. So I'm saying very minimum 1,000. I think Orissa is another example of how they're putting up massive sporting facilities, combining that with tourism and making it a good play.
That's amazing. And I feel, what you have done with CSE, in some ways you have done the hard work of creating the, template, like how I was talking about for Cult. Like if anyone wants, I'm sure, and you will be very open to that, help them, guide them, they can, take inspiration what you have built and replicate it, in any part of the country. Do you think budget is a big issue? Because on one hand, I mean, there are budgets, sports budget in the country.
No, you mentioned about the template. I think one of the most satisfying or gratifying things for me is the fact is that we've been able to show that template, and the template can be bigger in size, it can be smaller in size. It can be a single sport, it can be multi-sport. So when I have visitors coming or guests coming and seeing the facility and saying, we want to do something similar, I think that for me is great to know, because I know in a short period of time there are going to be many such centers across the country.
Right.
I come to the big question is, and it's not the fault of cricket, but I think where we have really gone wrong in this country is there's too much of money chasing cricket. Yeah. And for that I don't blame anyone in cricket administration. I don't blame anyone in amongst the players or the coaches. But actually, I put the fault with the corporates in our country. If they have to spend even 1/10 the amount to adopt another sport, I think we'll be much better off. So imagine, the cost of advertising during the IPL or at a World Cup. If corporate India begins to understand their responsibility is not just cricket. So one of the fundamental problems we have in our country is we are too cricket centric, and I think corporates need to get in and do something different there.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting observation. I have not looked into it. I don't know if you know the figures, but if you look at total corpus of money spent in the country in sports, both facilities, coaching, advertisement, and so on, wondering what percentage of that goes into cricket. Do you think it'll be more than 90%?
I think it's close to 90%. I would think it's really close to 90% if you add even all the infrastructure that's available, and I think it's definitely close to 90%.
Yeah. So yeah, right. Yeah. If with that being the state of affairs for money being spent, then, when you lament the number of medals we win in Olympics, should not be surprised. It's not that, country, when we're a large country, a lot of people have huge interest in sports. Probably the potential is there. And I think with the OGQ and other organizations like Go Sports and JSWX have shown that, even with little effort, you can really create world-class athletes. So probably that's one thing for whoever is involved, I guess, individual actors like yourself, who are also in some ways, big enabler for this. Hopefully this ratio changes a bit. Even if it becomes 80-20 or 70-30, then I think we can see a lot of other sports bloom. What are your plans with CSE going forward? If you fast forward 10 years from now, how do you see the evolution of CSE?
I think as far as CSE is concerned, we will constantly look at expansion. Like I said, there are some very key sports where we are not, we haven't created the infrastructure like wrestling, boxing, weightlifting, archery. I'm very keen to do something with regards to fencing, because I think fencing is a sport that is very similar to badminton. I have a feeling Indians will do great in fencing. Good hand-eye coordination is all that you require, besides good quality coaches coming in from maybe East Europe or whatever. But I think there's a lot more that we can do in CSE in terms of expansion.
Yeah. Let's anyone who is interested in building a facilities like CSE, it could be a smaller scale or bigger scale, maybe some capex they can put on their own. How can they reach out to you, and what kind of guidance can you provide with these folks? Because hopefully maybe somebody will get inspired to put that capital together, maybe attempt to do this in some other part of the country.
Yeah, so I think, Mukesh, that's already happening. It's happening in quite a big way. People realize that there is this center. They come across from various parts of the country, even from the city. They come in and they meet my team, or they meet me. And we are more than willing, because, like you said, we just want to be that catalyst to try and see how more and more centers can develop. And I remember I was in a conference, 2 years back, and a lady came up to me and said, thank you for putting up CSE. And I asked her why. She said, no, we have this 50-80 site, near Hebal. And we thought that we'll put up a commercial complex there.
Yeah.
But then we looked at CSE and said, no, instead of a commercial complex, let's put up a sporting infra, and they put up an indoors facility there. And that really made my day,
Amazing.
In terms of that people are now trying to do it in different forms, but, the ball is now set in terms of more and more setters, facilities coming up.
Now, I also use the opportunity to probably encourage people, watching this, someone who has extra land, somewhere, and a deep passion for sports, please, consider putting together these facilities, because the facilities is where, it inspires people to, pick up sport. You can get high, good quality coaching. You also get the environment in which sports is nurtured and encouraged. And who knows, on one hand, you can play for the state or country and win medals. But also, I think it transforms a lot of people's life. Sports also has a larger meaning beyond only winning medals. I'm guessing that's probably one reason why you've committed, so much of your life and your capital in nurturing sports, to this degree.
Yeah, there's definitely a movement, to everyone down the line. They have realized now that there's a lot of national pride involved, with anything to do with sport and sporting success. But let's not really fool ourselves. We are not a sporting nation as yet. We are nowhere close to it.
Yeah.
We are a cricket crazy nation, which is fine. But the skew, I don't think there's any other country in the world which has this kind of a skew that, 90% of funding, 90% of, say, spectator interest is all towards one sport.
Right.
And unless we come out of that, and unless we shift out of that, I think it's just going to be a challenge going forward, and I have another worry is that cricket is going to become an Olympic sport, which means CSR funding is going to get into cricket, which I'm just hoping corporates don't now spend, the CSR money they were spending on, say, badminton or hockey, and move that into cricket as well.
Well, even if it does become Olympic sport, you will at the end only win one medal. I don't think so. Versus, many sports like shooting and wrestling, and where you can win dozens of medals. Sometimes even an individual athlete like Michael Phelps will win 10 medals alone, in one sport of swimming. So that's But I think we'll come back and talk about this Paris Olympics are coming up, right? And as you earlier mentioned, some of the folks who are going to participate are training already at CSE and other parts in the country. India has never won more than I think highest ever tally is 6 or 8 medals.
Yeah, I think it's 7. Yeah,
it's 7, right? And but we have never won medals in double digit. I think people think this year we have a shot, and it will be one kind of breakthrough. After all these years of trying, and first hockey dominating, and then start winning medals in wrestling and shooting, etc. Do you think we have a shot at crossing 10 this year?
I think given the effort that has been put in, effort of organizations like OGQ and Go Sports and JSW, given that sheer effort and money that has gone behind some of these athletes, and now it's for a sustained period of time. It's not just 4 years. This has been going on for 8 years and 12 years, and there's junior programs which now are materializing into all of them becoming seniors. I think we should have a double-digit tally for sure. But it's really not so simple. I think sport is something which is completely different in terms of a profession than any other profession in the world. Any other profession. I don't think you can even compare sport, because the success ratio is so low, and the amount of hard work that needs to go in is so high. The lifespan of a sportsman is so short that I think it's brutal to be in this profession. So even if we don't win 10 medals or 20 medals, we should still give a lot of praise to all our athletes and coaches, because we are still just starting our sporting journey in this country.
Absolutely. So Vivek, you're talking about how difficult it is to win medal at the Olympic level, because obviously it is ultra competitive. People from all around the world train their entire life. People in China are selected at the age of probably 2 or something to become an Olympic athlete. But you also earlier mentioned that all of us as Indian, we take huge pride when India wins even single medal in Olympic. For a country of 1.4 billion people, at some point we would like to see our fair share of medals. We are 17-18% of world population. 17-18% of medals will be probably a tall order, but at least 30-40 medals should be something the country should aspire for next 10-20 years. What can change the game? Instead of this slow progress of 4 medals going to 6, maybe 6 going to 8, and so on, still too slow. India has done so well in IT industry, in digital economy and so on. What can be that catalyst for sports in the country?
So Mukesh, you've been part of OGQ for many years, and I look at OGQ as one of the best possible entities we can have in the country. In terms of the board, in terms of Viren, who's heading the organization, in terms of philosophy, culture of OGQ. I really admire the way you guys go about doing your work in OGQ. In fact, there's no difference between OGQ and a CSE in terms of the kind of work that the output that we want. But in India, we have a major problem, and I have a solution for that as well. We just have to pick the right person. Okay, resources are coming in, and we will win many medals. I think the dream of 2036 in terms of infrastructure will be very, very possible. But can we win 40, 50, 60 medals? I think we will not be able to do it with the current structure. We just need to pick 1 or maybe 3 or 5 good people and the right people, and then we will have the medal success.
Now that's an excellent, I think, way of looking at things. In business, we always use this whole framework of big, hairy, audacious goal. So you set a very high goal and put the most competent person, and in some ways, give the resources, but then get out of the way to let the person really, develop framework. And we've already done it. This two excellent example of public-private partnership that you mentioned, which have transformed the country for the better. I think if India, I know we have the aspiration of hosting 2036 Olympics, but maybe if we couple that ambition that we host and we gun for these many medals and we create that, empowered team with the adequate budgets. I don't think budget is a problem anymore. I think we have a size of economy we have. Whatever tiniest percent of that goes into sports, still a large amount of money. It's about channeling the money in the right kind of programs and right nurturing. So hopefully, people listening to this podcast, take note of, your suggestion and pass it on to right people. And who knows, Vivek, this could be a start of, that Nandan Nilekani of sports to emerge in the country at some point.
Yeah, absolutely, Mukesh. In fact, I want to give another example. I think China wanted to become a powerhouse in football.
Yeah.
And right from the top guy, he says we have to build 1,000 or 10,000 football stadiums, and they brought in a lot of money. They brought in a lot of players from various parts of the world to develop their football league. But I don't think they've moved very much because the sport is not like any other profession. You just cannot spend a lot of money and have success. I mean, even in cricket, we are spending a lot of money, but we are still not winning every single tournament, or every single World Cup. So there are huge challenges. I think that and of course I'm choosing people who are slightly younger, and at 2036 they will be they will still be around in terms of being able to see this entire cycle. But if you take the example of Sebastian Coe and what he did for UK and the sport in UK, I feel unless people like Abhinav Bindra get involved, unless people like Rahul Dravid get involved, unless people like Viren gets involved, unless people like Sunil Chetri gets involved, or my last example is Saurav Ghoshal. These are really intelligent people who have played the sport at the highest level. They're exposed in various parts. It combines team sport as well as individual sport. I think if we have a committee of these five, I can bet on the fact that we can win 40-50 medals.
I really hope people take note of your suggestion, Vivek. These are all outstanding individuals. I know most of them. I really hope we are lucky enough to see some of these people end up in a very strong, powerful positions where they have a massive mandate and backing to do, and maybe next 10 to 20 years, instead of hoping for 10 or 12 models, we can raise our aspiration, which we are doing in so many other walks of life. We have made massive dents in removing eliminating extreme poverty in the country. Things like direct benefit transform are doing wonders. Infrastructure is of different league altogether in the country now, and with me Make in India, so much manufacturing. You have background in manufacturing, so you can relate to that. Even semiconductor, seeing many billions of dollars of investment. So I think we have all the right to expect kind of world-class administration and world-class ambitions to do something in sports, and I really hope people will pay more attention to this. I want to talk to you about the increasing role of technology. Sports is, I guess, world is changing, and a lot of technology is now coming into sports. It's becoming technical. It's you can do very rigorous analysis of what's going on. You can have live monitoring now, AI powered analysis. A lot of variables. What is your perspective on how the technology is changing how people train?
Yeah, firstly, I think that's where Indians right now, Indian sports people are lacking. I think we are behind the rest of the world as far as this is concerned. And if I can put it, in a very holistic way, sports science, which includes technology now. I give the example of 15 years back. Indian athletes would not have physiotherapists. Okay, now I think more than a coach, no elite Indian athlete wants to go for a competition without a physiotherapist. So that's how 15 years back we were behind the rest of the world in terms of physiotherapy. I think the same example is now there with sports science and technology. where we are 15 years behind. And here I would say it's a combination of the coaches. The coaches' mindset in our country is not aligned to what sports science can do or technology can do. Yeah. If you look at football, if you look at all the top football teams that are playing in the EPL or any other league, the coaches are getting constant feedback of what needs to be done on the field from the technology that they're using.
Yeah.
But we don't seem to use it at all. At least the coaches here for some reason have a mind block about using technology and sports science. And I think unless that changes, we are going to continue to struggle. And that's why I said, sport is very niche and it's very brutal. None of us will be able to understand this unless we have really seen examples. And there are enough and more books written about all of this, where sometimes I feel our coaches are not even reading enough or learning enough on what sports science and technology can do for us.
Got it. So it's not the lack of access to technology. You are saying it's just whatever technology is available. Today, I think the way coaches have come up in the system, they are not very well versed and not very at least proactive to incorporate that. That's what's holding things back.
In fact, I think there's more than enough technology available. And we have examples of a Djokovic and how much he's using sports science. So why are we not using it, in our country? And he, he's even said, after I retire, I want to give back by telling people how I did and what I did. And still we have a very conservative mindset on sports science and technology.
It doesn't look like Djokovic is anywhere close to retiring the way it's going.
And that's probably because he's using technology and sports science so effectively.
Right. Let's just talk about coaches also a bit. What does it, and I mean, you have a lot of coaches working at CSE through various academies. What does it take for someone to become a coach? And then from there on to, become a really, really good coach. What kind of support is available to people, so both pushing, your abilities as a coach and also building a career as a coach?
Yeah, so most coaches in our country are former players, and I think, like I said, because it becomes a career option.
Yeah.
I played state level, I played national level, and then I become a coach. And then, of course, there are certifications, which are available depending on the sport. Like, for example, football has even guidelines from FIFA, UEFA to become certified coaches. There's a D, B, and A license.
Yeah.
And they conduct these certification courses across the country. But we don't, for example, have enough swimming coaches. But I think, going back to your question, like I said, most coaches in our country are former players or former swimmers for that matter.
Yeah.
But I think that's where we also have a problem where I think we should probably have coaches who are coming from different backgrounds, just not from sporting backgrounds, because that will make them more open to understanding technology, understanding sports science better than what our coaches are doing right now. And I think that needs to change as well.
Do we have good sports science degrees in the country?
I think it's almost negligible. And that's where I think there's a huge gap.
Right.
So that's why you have a lot of foreigners who are coming in here and helping us with sports science.
Got it. Okay.
Mukesh, thank you. You've been extremely generous with all that you've said about the center. I know you've been there many times and we have loved having you there. Let me also add here that, when the center was just a barren piece of land, and I remember it was a hot summer day, you came in there and, you came in very generously to say that you want to support the center. And I know at that point of time, Cure and Cult were also, at a very nascent stage. But, it is actually people like you and your generosity that has helped, to really build that culture in CSE. And we know what you've done for Six Cricket and, the huge contribution and collaboration that we have with Cult. Okay, and it's just, I think, us coming together as a team, for the love of sport and to try and see whether we can get, India, up there as far as the medals tally or, even at different championships across the world. I think we have a common goal to try and see that we build national pride.
Absolutely. No, I have enjoyed, all, my association with CSE. It's very, very inspiring every time I go there. And I hope we continue to find other avenues to collaborate and do whatever we can for the sports in the country. Thank you.
At SparX, we aim to bring to you stories of exponential impact. We share in-depth analysis of what goes behind success stories. If you find our conversations interesting, you can join us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can also listen to SparX on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any other audio platform of your choice. If you have any suggestions on who we should invite or what topics we need to cover, just let us know in the comments. We are always listening, looking for ways to improve, and keep getting better as we go along.